Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we have a guest who came all the way from New York City, even though he's originally from New Orleans, which I hit both those places in the last year for the first time, so I was pretty stoked, although my experience in New Orleans was a one-day event for Mardi Gras, so I don't know if I really saw it. Our guest today is performing in Eau Claire. I think it's not his first time down at the Plus because Cullen Ryan is the genius and awesome person that he is. Welcome to the show, comedian and actor, Sean Patton.
Hello, thank you. This is my, by the way, I'm going to go on a limb here. I want to say 7th time to Eau Claire.
Yeah. How?
Yeah.
I mean, like, me and Cullen have talked a lot. He's the station manager for the radio station that we're on. And in general, we've been buddies for a long time. So I see how savvy he is.
Yeah.
But how in the world has he gotten someone like you here 7 times?
Actually, it was 2015. And my agent at the time, Cullen, made just like a Hail Mary. He like emailed one on my website, got my agent at the time's information, sent them an offer. And I remember my agent hit me up and was like, hey, look, you're already going to be in Madison. Or I was in Madison the weekend before. He's like, you're already going to be there. It's, you'd have to kill a day out there. But it's a pretty good deal, and it's 2-hour drive, 2.5 hours. And I was like, you know what? I'm adventurous in that regard.
Sure.
But yeah, why not? Let's do it. And I remember driving out here being like, I don't know what this is going to be like. Small town, Wisconsin, here we go. And then I remember as I was driving in and parking and like, it's like, this is different. This is not what I was expecting. And even people in Madison were like, oh yeah, Eau Claire's pretty cool, right? Yeah. So I remember that night doing the show, I was just blown away by how like good the audience was, how funny the other comics on the show were who were locals,
yeah,
and how like chill everyone was and cool. And I remember the day before, I wish I could remember the writer's name, but a writer for like a local newspaper here hit me up and was like, hey, I want to interview you, but it won't come out, it'll come out probably 2 weeks after the show, but it's just to kind of, it's for the arts. I was like, you know what? Great. And we had a good interview, and I remember him asking me like, what advice would you have for anyone, anyone in Eau Claire wanting to do comedy? And I was like, I got one word: leave. What do you, Eau Claire? And then after I did the show, I got in touch with that writer. I was like, hey, can I rescind that?
Yeah,
can we strike that? And I say, stay in Eau Claire. It's magical. But like, I fell in love with this place like day one. And then I didn't even find out that like Justin Vernon was from here till like my 3rd or 4th time here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the local legend. But the cool part about being, and it's funny, like it is a small town, especially if we're talking about like New York City or New Orleans or something like that. Mm-hmm. But we just passed 70,000 people. We're like the 6th or 7th biggest city in Wisconsin. Not that means a lot, but we're really not that small. And not only that, we're only an 1.5-hour drive from Minneapolis. Well, and that's what I'm saying. So like people will say they live in New York City and they're an hour out from downtown anyways.
Oh, for sure.
So it does, to me, it's like just far enough away from Minneapolis that you get the small town feel, but you really have all the resources around you that what a really big city has. So it's kind of a magical mixture.
I love downtown. I love all the walking bridges.
Yeah.
I love that. I love walking around downtown Eau Claire. It's not optimal weather now, but I've been here during the summer.
Yeah.
In fact, last time I was here was during the summer. And it was great. And that was another thing. Last time I was here, the shows weren't happening at the Plus for some reason. I don't think it was open.
It was closed for a while.
So we were doing shows at this place called the Brick House, which walking into it, you're like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. This seems like they don't like anyone who didn't vote for a certain former reality TV show host. And but those shows were great, and the hang was fun. And every time I come here, I'm like, I've become obsessed with the state of Wisconsin.
Dude, there's just so much good stuff here. I think one thing that's about, like, because of being here, especially the people in the comedy scene, they recognize how special it is that we're having as many people as we have. Because if we look at not just you, and like I'm pumping you up, but not just you, if we look at the entire list of comedians that have performed in Eau Claire and you compare it to any other city of our size, it's star-studded and ridiculous. And people here are excited about it, and they appreciate that these people are coming here. So of course they're going to clap. Versus I think sometimes when people are in a bigger city where everything's available to them, they take things for granted and they don't like appreciate things quite as much in that kind of way.
For sure. And I mean, also Cullen, he did it right. Like he cultivated a scene. He didn't just
from nothing
throw up comedy and just didn't care, and then just took. He didn't just book whoever he could get. He's like, no, I'm going to go for these people I want.
Yeah.
He booked who he wanted to versus who he could get, and I helped. Not really helped. I told him, like, if anyone asks, if you need to tell anyone to hit me up, I will gladly vouch times 1,000, and I have, and I get like excited when someone comes here for the first time.
Oh, because the experience they're going to have.
Because I know I'm going to get to talk to them afterwards. Like, what'd you think? And it's always been like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that at all. I'm like, yeah.
Well, you can't get any, like, Cullen is the biggest fan of comedy of anybody I've ever met. He's the one who laughs continuously, just booming at every single joke from every single set. And it's like his energy is infectious. Anyways, we'll stop talking about him because he's the best person ever, but I don't need to keep saying that. You're on a tour right now, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of like perpetually touring. But like I named it the Material Tour, which is just because I do material. I got no, I think at a certain point in any sort of art, craft, business, whatever, you got to just stop paying attention to what other people are doing and just focus on you.
Yeah.
Right. And, but you are aware of it. And like right now we're in that age of social media where everybody's all about crowd work clips, because that's material you're not burning. So you're getting a lot of shows now where comics are filming and they're filming themselves interacting with the crowd. And listen, I would never begrudge anyone if you figure out how to make a living doing something, great, do it. Something that doesn't hurt other people.
Right? Yeah.
But but I do sometimes. I don't necessarily agree with that mindset because it has turned a certain type of audience has started coming out to shows.
More hecklers you're talking about?
Not even hecklers, just people who they go because they want to be part of the show.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to actually listen. Like, to me, comedy, personally, I feel like shares more with theater than anything else. And like that's the kind of stuff I like watching. Like I've always liked watching comedy, watching ideas being presented, watching bits, watching like how people perform. Like I love the craft. I've never really found the crowd work part very interesting.
Yeah, well,
I've seen great crowd work. I've had moments on stage where it's fun interacting with an audience member. But now you got these people who show up and they sit there, and the moment you ask them any question or have the slightest interaction, they just vomit up all kinds of information about themselves. Like, hold on. This isn't about you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's similar to the like freestyling. If you really like that rapper, you would like to listen to him freestyle, but realistically, what they put on put on the album is better because it's worked material. It's something that they actually tried to work towards. Whatever you can do off the top of your head is never going to be the best you could do in general, right?
Right. And I believe Method Man once said like he doesn't like to do battles.
Sure.
Because he's like, I'm better at writing this stuff down. And Method Man's a fantastic rapper. You know what I mean? Like, he once rhymed, like he has a rhyme. What song is it? But it's he says something. Method Man coming rugged rhymes galore with my hand on the 4, 9, 3, 11 with the rubber. Yeah, it's hand on the 4, 9, 3, 11 with the rugged rhymes galore. 4, 9, 3, 11 is the numerical placement of letters. It spells out dick. Right?
Oh my god!
Right? Like that's, I didn't know like that, if someone says that off the top of their head, you might have to actually be like, "Hey, give me a sample of your brain tissue. You might be a pure genius." But that's writing. It's like you're always going to get deeper, more interesting shit. And like I said, there's some crowd work comics out there. Big J Okerson is probably the best alive. Yeah. That dude's amazing, but he does it in a way that's like he goes deeper with his what he does, and like. Jessica Kirschen, she's amazing. Same thing. Those are two veterans. Yeah. Those are two comedians who've been doing it for a long ass time and figured out how to make something that's very hard look insanely and in the moment.
Do they practice like this is if people heckle me in the common ways they expect to? Do they practice stuff like that ahead of time? So
I'm sure. I'm not 100% sure what the process with it, but I've seen them both. If you're living in New York. You're going up as much as you can, as much as you want to.
Well, there's got to be clubs every single night you could be at.
Every night of your life. Yeah. I mean, if I'm in town for a week, I'll go on stage 20 times. Oh, wow. And that's low to some people. I also just, but I'm a material, but that's why I called it the material tour, because like, I just, crowd interaction is not my thing.
Okay,
I
sure.
like to write. I love writing. I love presenting ideas. I love the balance of like writing something intricate and then presenting it in a way where it's like you get those intricacies across, because that's very difficult. And I love that though. I love that part. And like, and there's so many people calling their tours like the crowd work tour or the and I'm like, you know what? I'm just the material tour. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's tough though, right? Like people who aren't established, they have to establish themselves somehow in its own oversaturated market, and it's really difficult. And you look at like where the reward comes from with the time and energy that you put in, and what currently is rewarding people the most are the views and the likes and the followers and all that type of stuff. So what are they going to do? It's attractive to want to go that route and create that type of content, because that's what gets you to these places. That's what gets you on these, to play at this, show or whatever. And not only that, but people's management and like labels and all that type of stuff too. They push crazy heavy for it. Like I just saw, you probably don't know pro skateboarding all that much. I own a skateboard shop, so that's like my background. But anyways, DC Shoes, which is huge, they just let go of Wes Kramer, who's like a very, very established, well-known pro skateboarder. He had won Thrasher Skater of the Year. He's like a huge name in skateboarding, and they cut him because he doesn't have social media and refused to. And that was the only reason. And that's becoming more and more common right? Like, and I was talking to Dina Hashem about it too, about how that's like your resume nowadays. So if you don't build on that platform at all, unless you are very established, that's what they're going to look at before they want to pay you.
In essence, because there are still people who look at the other, who still go quality over quantity.
Right.
Because you're right, yes, for the most part, yes. But then like there are comedians that blow up that a club will book once or twice and then be like, no. Because they're not bringing, they don't bring anything to stage, or people will pay to see once.
Yeah.
The show will be terrible, and then when that person comes back into town, they're like, I'm not going to see that again.
Sure.
And the problem with going up on stage and only wanting to, like, going on stage and only doing crowd work.
Yeah.
The problem there is that you're developing one style, and you're not growing. I don't think if you're trying to write jokes and be a comedian, you're not growing. You're just doing this one thing to get clips to then.
Well, you're not having time to work through the material.
Right. So like you're not becoming better at it.
Sure.
And if you're not becoming better at it, you're going to get passed by someone who is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like, and yes, well, you're 100% right that like, yeah, there is. People are obviously enticed and like, oh my God, if I just get 20,000 followers, I can start touring or whatever the number is now, because that number shifts constantly.
Yeah, totally.
It used to be 5,000, and then you hear you had to hit 100,000. Now it's like, no, you only need about 15. It's crazy. It's like the goalposts are constantly moving. But at the same time, I do think like regardless of any of it, quality will always overcome.
Yeah.
Always. May take a little longer, may not seem immediately like it will, but it does. It's been proven repeatedly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's about getting those people onto that stage, and I think people are just trying to cut to the stage right away as fast as they possibly can, rather than putting in the work to get there. What do you see as the common mistakes of people who are trying to come up in comedy right now, other than putting all of their attention into creating clips and social media?
I mean, I think that's the mistake. I think that's the most common mistake. I talk to a lot of you. I know people at my level are way bigger than me who just don't like to talk to younger comics. Yeah. Just kind of like stay out of that world. And I understand that. I can see how it could, but I also like to. I like to talk to younger comics. It's fun sometimes. And sometimes no one ever did that for me. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I started in New Orleans where there was a very small DIY comedy scene. And by the time I moved to LA and then New York, I was very just like on my own thing. Yeah. I like talking to the kids, and sometimes they need to hear like, hey, work on your like, get funny before you do anything else. Right. And that's a mistake I see a lot of people making now. Like that was for me coming up. We didn't think about. I mean, I've been doing this for 22 years. Yeah. Right. It took about 9 before I was able to like quit a day job and do it full time. Yeah. Right. And those were 9 through everything I had into it years. And I still do. And it's great. I'm very grateful and excited. But I didn't start thinking about making money at comedy for years. Right. I was like, let me be good at this. And now you talk to people who are like 6 months in.
Yeah.
And they're like, so how do you start making money at this? I'm like, what are you, insane? Are you even good? Like, it's do that. And it's disheartening. It is. It's a little depressing to see that people look at comedy now as like the same way they look at, like, I don't know, entry level publishing or just anything. They look at it as a job instead of a passion and a craft.
Right.
It's an art form. And if you're going to enter into any art form, you have to be willing to take your lumps for a while solely because you're becoming good at the art form.
Right.
And then once you're good at it, then start thinking about how to monetize it.
Yeah.
That's how I think too many people roll in just like, I'm going to be exactly like this guy. And there's a lot of phonies out there, but that's what happens. It's almost like it's not their fault. That's what happens when anything explodes.
Yeah.
When anything gets
big.
It's
one-hit wonder mentality.
Right. I mean, music too.
Yeah, exactly.
It happened in music for decades. It still does. But like, people just see something and copycat it and want to just be it and aren't for a second thinking about what they want to bring to the craft, what they want to create, who they are as a creator, as a performer, as an artist. And I think that's important. I think you have to like know who you are and what you are as a comedian before you ever start thinking about how to make it.
Sure.
And how to because I can point out a lot of, in my opinion, people who have made it but are fraudulent.
Yeah,
they're not
sure.
going to be around for very long.
Yeah.
And what they bring, and like no one, like I know very famous comedians who absolutely no one respects or really likes.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about it as people. I'm talking about it as like artists too.
The other people in the industry don't respect them.
Right. And I know the other way around too. I know very non-known at all comedians who everyone loves and respects and thinks are brilliant.
Sure.
It goes both ways. There's the spectrum is massive. But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, like, what are you getting in this for? Are you getting into this to be rich and famous? Then do something else. Be a model. You can do that on Instagram too. Be a butt model. Be an influencer. But if you get it, the reason I got into this because it's the best. Because I have a lot of things I want to say. I love expressing myself, and the only way I could ever do it was by making people laugh.
Sure.
And that's the best way, if you ask me. And I love it. That's why I got into this.
How does somebody know that it's time for them to push to make money and make it a career? When do they feel that? You know that it's almost like in my opinion, it chooses you.
Yeah. It's like the cosmos taps you or something. It's almost like you just know. Like you're just like, oh hey, this person is booking me I'm getting booked like this more. I know because like I've heard people say, and this is one of my biggest issues with social media, is that it creates this idea that we all should be celebrating sharing everything about our lives and celebrating every moment of it. I'm like, that's just dumb. Like certain things I think are to keep to yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Right? They're little victories for you, but like putting it out there online and I've seen a lot of people post and like I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Like when people post like, quit my job today to do comedy full time.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking? What do you mean?
Right.
What does that mean? Quit your job to do comedy full time? What do you think bookers around the world are like, holy smokes, you're free? Because we've been waiting for you. We've already got thousands of other options that we can use, but we've been waiting on you to quit your day job so you could finally do this. Yeah. Get over here. It doesn't work that way. Like you quit your day job when you have to, when it's like, hey, I can't come in because I'm too busy doing comedy now.
Right.
And like I see a lot of people doing this, like making this push of like, this is the year I go pro. And it's like, what do you mean go pro? This is not golf.
Right.
This is not a sport. This is a art form. Like when you're a professional comedian, you get called professional when you are actually professional.
Right.
When you are doing this full time, and that's your. The idea that people put the whole of putting it out into the universe, I do believe in that.
Sure.
But there's a way to do it, and I don't think social media is it. Yeah. I think social media is a way to almost like take something. What's a good way to say this? Like. It almost like it's, if there is a cosmic force that responds to you putting stuff out there, to me, social media is the thing that makes that cosmic force go, nah, that's where you chose to put it out. That's where you're putting all your faith in that in like, 'cause the algorithm is a gatekeeper.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the current gatekeeper for like everything these days. It's the biggest one.
People act like there isn't a gatekeeper anymore because of internet, because of social media. It's like, no, the algorithm. The old gatekeepers were at least human. You could at least reason with them and get answers out of them.
And they had that position for a reason. They probably were experiencing that. And they have taste they've developed for a reason.
The algorithm it's not human. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense, some of the stuff.
I think right now it's one of those things where everything's a spectrum. Like it's hard to make blanket statements about hardly anything. But I think at this point you see those people that completely write it off as this is a tool that I hate. It doesn't represent me the way I want, and they stick to that. And I think that holds them back to a certain degree.
Yeah, you can't do that.
However, it doesn't mean you have to be on the complete opposite end of the spectrum either. No. I think it's just about getting savvy and figuring out, okay, what works with me? How can I use this tool in a way that works for me, where I feel good about it, where it then helps fund this, where it helps get the opportunities. But I also think, as far as like when it's time to go do something, if you're creating not for the sake of money, and money is more like the secondary thing, you will see those opportunities come up more and more and more. And when it comes to a point where you're not pushing super hard to find those opportunities, that's the time. And then those will grow anyways. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try to get contracts with things or reach out to venues to get booked. You shouldn't assume everyone's going to come to you.
You should 1,000% be doing that.
Right.
But you should also be doing it like between you and the booker.
Right, totally.
Like people who like reached out to 5 bookers today. Let's see who responds. Why are you putting that out there?
Sure.
That's insane to me. And that's what I'm talking about, where it's like, okay, if this is the year you quit your day job to become a full-time comedian, keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
Keep that to yourself. Do your thing, and then once you're a full-time comedian, then you can talk about how it happened. Yeah. But people who just have this idea that every step of the way needs to be broadcast. That's why I hate behind-the-scenes stuff.
Sure.
Because I'm like, let's just see the product. Yeah. Why do we have to constantly be showing everyone how it's made? And there are people out there who are constantly just putting up like, here I am grinding. Oh, there I am on the hustle. Oh, here I am putting in the work. It's like, how about you just show us the product?
Right.
How about we just see the what is it? The fruit of that labor. Like how about instead of constantly pointing out that you're doing something, just do the thing and put that out there. I like that. I think that's so much more awesome.
Yeah.
When people, that's why Bo Burnham is. I use that guy as an example a lot, but that dude is like a pure genius to me. But
I agree.
But he also he first of all, arguably was one of the, if not the first, internet famous comedian.
Yeah, the first I can think of for sure.
Right. So he wasn't this like boy, like wasn't raised in a showbiz family.
Right.
Wasn't like prepped to be an actor wasn't like Taylor Swift. No, nothing against Taylor Swift, but she was, her parents were hemorrhaging money on her from when she was like 11 years old or whatever. Yeah. Bo was like in his bedroom making videos by himself with no friends. And he blew up, and then the industry jumped on top of him. But he makes a great point. He only puts stuff out when it's ready to be put out and when it's good. And it's like, did you see that thing? Those things he released during the pandemic?
Yeah, the one where he did it at his house or his apartment, right? Yeah.
He could have been just constantly showing you clips of like, here I am about to shoot something. Yeah. Here we are about to do something. But then my problem with that is once it's released, now there's no magic to it.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. If you lose all of the time, attention, and excitement that's around that thing early, you burn those people out before they ever see what the actual thing is you were working on. And if you want to figure out, okay, time and attention, that's like the best, most valuable resource anyone can give me. Yeah. Do I want them to give me 10 times as much of it leading up into it? Or should I just have all that attention on the one thing that I actually really care about?
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite bands?
I mean, one of my favorite bands, which so many people will hate on, and it's funny because I think this band I'm about to name, it's the same effect as like a Dave Matthews Band or a Fish.
Oh yeah.
Or Fish, where it's like a lot of people don't actually know the music. Yeah. They just hate the fan base or something.
Yeah, sure.
Or hate but Tool is one of my all-time favorite bands.
Sure.
And a lot of people just like, oh, Tool fan. I'm like, what do you think that means? It's all math nerd. It's all like, it's math rock, but like you go to a Tool concert, I'm like, everyone here looks pretty chill to me. But I love Tool. I love the Deftones. I love, I'm from that 90s, the 90s, there was some golden music. Yeah. Golden age of hip hop, if you ask me. I mean,
sure.
There's still great hip hop out there. A much older, wiser, far more coked up guy than I will ever be, said this once to me, and I was like, dude, that's arguably one of the greatest pieces of advice I've ever heard. He goes, the moment you stop listening to new music is the moment you actually start aging.
Sure.
And I was like, wow. I'm not saying everything, but like,
Sure.
There's stuff that just like lately, dude, have you seen the Miles Morales Spider-Mans?
No. I mean, I know what they are. I've not watched them. I can't
recommend those enough, but the soundtrack to both, ooh, amazing.
Bunch of 90s, or what do you mean?
90s hip hop, but then like new stuff too.
Oh, cool.
And it's awesome. But actually, and real quick, so skateboarding.
Yeah.
So growing up, teenager, high school, all of my friends skated, and they were all graph kids, you know?
Yeah.
So skating and bombing, right? Constantly.
Yeah.
Two things I was terrible at, just terrible at. I'm goofy-footed. I don't think that really matters at all. I just sucked at skateboarding, right?
No, Tony Hawk's goofy, so that doesn't...
Is he?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, yeah. But, so all my friends were pretty good. I just sucked to the point I was like, I can't even... And same thing with graffiti.
Yeah.
Like they all had handles and tags and names, and mine were just dumb and looked. So I didn't do either, but I was just with my friends constantly while they were doing either.
Sure.
So I was the guy who was just cracking jokes the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. And just there while my friends were doing the thing, and when they'd get tired, you know, we had a place in Slidell, Louisiana. That's a suburb my parents moved us to that I grew up in, outside of New Orleans. There was a place called Pink Panther, which was just an old swimming pool.
Okay, sure.
And that became the skate park.
Huh.
Because it wasn't really, you know, when I see skate parks now, I'm like, that is so cool, but that did not exist.
There's a very famous like pool that's called the Pink Motel.
Really?
Yeah, and it's at like a pink motel, and it's like, it's a famous one in skateboarding. But I think, a big part of what skateboarding is, and I think this is the case with a lot of things, is it's more so about the experience than the thing.
The actual, you
know what I mean? Like it's going out with your friend, right? It's especially when you're like a teenager, right? It's like going out with your friends, getting into whatever, just having fun, and no rules to it. And that's really what is the core fun thing about it, not the board itself necessarily.
Oh yeah.
And if you found those same types of individuals, but they were into playing basketball and like whatever the street hoop scene is, you'd probably be into that, and you'd have very similar feels to it. You know what I mean?
And that was like my origin of comedy, I think. Was just hanging out with my friends,
practicing your material like
just
that.
Sort of, try. Like I was like, I can't. Like I said, I couldn't skate, so I would just try and make them laugh, people laugh while they were skating. Same thing with graffiti. Like I was so bad at it, but I'd just be cracking jokes.
Well, see, I did graffiti when I was really young. It's the only thing I've ever been arrested for, and I was not particularly good for it, or good at it. And I've never really used spray paint other than like making stencils and doing it that kind of way. But I got super heavy into painting when I was like 28. Was when that started to become a big part of my life. And now I've painted some of the biggest murals in the area.
That's awesome.
But I still use a brush. It's kind of just like at the time, I thought I had to be good at that thing. That's how I had to be good at it to be good at it. I wasn't really aware that I don't have to go that route. I could go different routes. I could do whatever works for me. And then it was when I finally didn't care about art. I didn't care if I was good or not, that I let my guard down and just like started making stuff because I didn't care if it was good, that it became good.
Dude, that's also the the sound of the ball in the spray paint can. That is the soundtrack to some of my most formative years. You know, it's just like that was happening somewhere while some pinnacle or pivotal moments in my life, some seminal youthful moments. But no, man, that's also interesting too, because you just stuck with it even though it didn't fit the form you started in.
Right. And
I think that's the thing too, you were asking about comedy in the first segment, is don't be afraid to be different.
Yeah.
I see this a lot in comedy. People who just are convinced they have to fit into this mold, that they have to be like, all your jokes have to be set up punch, stand there with the microphone, wear a tie, whatever it is. It's like, not really wear a tie, you don't see that much, but like, there's just people I see who like, I know they're funny, but they're trying to be this one style of comic. They're trying to be like this idea of this archetype that's the stand-up comedian. It's like, no, stand-up comedy does not mean you have, like, Jerry Seinfeld is not the archetype.
Right.
He's just a very successful comedian. Like, you can be different and be great. If you are standing on a stage, expressing your ideas and making people laugh, that's comedy. That to me is stand up. It can take any form.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, that's the only way that you're really going to be good anyways, because nobody wants the impersonator of somebody else. Well, they want the original.
Yeah. Well, also, okay, here's a prime example. You're talking about Sam Talent.
Yeah.
Right? Who I love. I think he's brilliant man, brilliant comedian. He wears shorts on stage. That's his choice. He likes to wear shorts, like athletic shorts on stage.
Sure, yeah.
Someone like Seinfeld would probably see that and be like, well, that's not comedy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? He's up there saying funny, hilarious things. Yeah. Who cares what he's wearing?
Right.
You know what I mean? And like so I'd say that to any young comedian. It's like, if you're different, lean into that.
Oh, totally.
You're going to stand out way more because of that than because of your crowd work. You're going to get way more attention because you're different than because of how many views you get on TikTok.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, all that stuff, like being different, that's what's going to translate to those things anyways. Yeah. So you still live in New York?
Yes.
Correct?
Brooklyn,
so
New York, yeah.
Why Brooklyn, New York? Do you why do you want to live there? Because you're from a smaller town outside of New Orleans, right?
Yes.
You're not from New Orleans.
Well, I'm from, my family, like my blood is all deep 9th Ward, 7th Ward, New Orleans.
Okay, sure. Right?
But my parents, when I was like 13, moved us to Slidell, which is like half an hour north.
Oh, okay.
Right? But like my whole, so I didn't grow up I grew up kind of early in the city, but I didn't grow up in the city, but I was always in the city. Because my family, my dad's business, family catering business was there. It was like, and now, my siblings are in the city and my parents are still in Slidell, but whenever I go home, I stay in the city. I don't even stay with my parents really.
So why do you want to be in New York then? I know that's like the thing, especially when you're younger, if this is the land of opportunity, come here and you could do anything. But a lot of times when people get older, more established, they go, I want to be by family. I don't want to be there anymore. Sure.
I'm a single dude with no kids, which is all by design. And, but like, I also, if you're a comedian, New York's the Mecca.
Yeah, well, of course.
I'm gonna say just for pure stage time. I mean, like Austin right now, there's a lot going on in Austin. There's a huge scene there. LA right now, there's kind of a dip in how much is going on in LA, but that's cyclical.
Sure.
In a few years, it'll be big again. But you got cities like Chicago, which have a huge comedy scene and are awesome, and Denver, Colorado, Atlanta, Georgia. These are all places that have great big comedy scenes that are awesome. But New York is where you go and you can get up like I said 20 times a week.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's low for some guys. I know guys who are getting up 35 times a week.
Sure.
Girls too. People. Yeah. I know there's just so much stage time in New York, and it is a fun city to live in.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's everything going on literally all the time.
Everything's going on all the time.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you can, sometimes I avoid a lot of that stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not like crazy out every night. I'll do my sets and go home. You can't. But so I just like being near it. I just like the option of like, if I want to go to an after hours bar right now, I know 3 off the top of my head, just in this neighborhood. If I'm hungry and I want, Capavelli pasta, I don't even know if that's a type of pasta, but let's go find out. There's a place open that does pasta 24/7. It's just, I like how that's wild and crazy to me. You can get pasta whenever you want, but there's just this sort of constant. It's a very frenetic city. It's constantly moving. It's very. Totally. I love that. Will I live there for the rest of my life, full time? No, but I will never not go to New York.
How come you don't want to live there the rest of your life full time?
At a certain point, you just gotta like. I'm probably in New York in 2023. We can talk about that because that year just ended.
Yeah.
I could give you a better example. I was in New York, I believe, 22 weeks of the 52 weeks.
Oh, I guess. Yeah, you're traveling all the time.
Traveling a lot on tour. And I missed it. And I'd say prior to that, on average, I was in town 24, 25 weeks a year.
Sure.
Right? Last year, I did this big tour with David Cross for 6 months, and that took me out a lot more. And that would also, my own dates, but I was out a little more this year than I normally would be, which is awesome. And I miss the city when I get back. Sure. I'm like, yay! But my best friend growing up, who I've known since we were teenagers, he lives in Brooklyn, 3 blocks from me, but he's there full time.
Yeah.
And he made a point once where he was like, yeah, man, sometimes I get tired of this place. I'm like, oh yes, because you're here 52 weeks a year. Or, right, 45 weeks a year, whatever. They vacation a lot. But there's a side of me that just does acknowledge and appreciate the idea of like buying a home.
Right.
Settling, not so much settling down as just having a home base.
Sure.
And in New York, I bounce around so much.
Yeah.
And you can't, unless you have a lot of money.
A ton of money.
Yes. Owning a home in New York City is everything but cheap.
Oh, and even getting a townhome, we're talking $3 million in Brooklyn.
Easily.
Anyways, it's
Easily.
You can't have like.
Easily.
I like the quiet lifestyle of here. I like that, and
I like it too.
Going to LA or New York or like Austin, whatever. All those cities are cool. There's a lot of cool things about them, and there's a lot of cool people there. There's a lot of opportunity there. But what works for me, and everyone just has to find out what works for them. And I encourage anybody, people who grow up here too, to leave the city for at least a year somewhere just to experience and see what it is that you actually like. Anyways, but what I found that I actually like is I like being here. I like just scheduling a week if I want to, if that's what I'm in, and then I can get in the mental headspace of this is what this week's going to look like. It's going to be fast paced. I'm going to go experience all the things, and then I'll be exhausted and I'll come back home and I'll be able to relax in my space, and there's way less going on, but that's what I like the majority of the time.
Right. And I think that's awesome. So like, I would love to find where that is for me.
Right.
Because I don't know yet. And I'd love to have like in a dream idea of a dream year, it would be where I still spend 10 weeks a year in New York.
Sure.
Because I still get to go, still hang out, still do as many sets as possible. I hate summertime, just in general.
Too hot or why?
I've never been a summertime kid. I don't like hot weather. I don't love beaches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love swimming. I absolutely adore swimming. That's the only part of the thing about summertime that I like is there's a lot more opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
But I also grew up in the muggy ass.
Yeah. Summer down there is going to be horrible.
Just as horrible in New York. Equally as horrible. Because in the South, it's that humid, mosquito-y, just sort of sticky, gross, like you feel like you're wearing a liquid suit at all times. New York is the same exact way, same humidity, but also just concrete.
Sure.
Everywhere. So I don't like summer in either place. And New Orleans and New York are two of my favorite places on earth. I can't stand summer in either one of them.
Where would be your ideal place to spend your summer?
Summer, like up here.
Yeah.
Out here.
Well, I mean, you're gonna
summer out here is amazing.
So you're gonna come to Eau Claire next summer. We'll find a great place for you for the whole time.
That would be. Listen, that's not crazy because like you said, we're only an hour and change from Minneapolis.
Really though,
that's a major airport. Also, one of my favorite clubs. My two favorite clubs outside of New York are in Madison and Minneapolis.
And Eau Claire is a close third.
Eau Claire's. If Colin ever opens up a full-time comedy club, we'll see.
Hey, he's been trying. I got to give a shout out to some sponsors and give you gifts.
Okay.
So these are for you. First, I got Minimum Wage Tim's Coffee. This one's from Papua New Guinea.
Oh.
Yeah, this dude went to college in Eau Claire here, and he owns a coffee company in Minneapolis. They ship all over the country, but it's like this cool boutique coffee brand. So those
that is a
coffee beans are yours.
And that looks like Kurt Vonnegut.
The like little illustration with the mustache.
I like that. Yeah, cool.
And then I got these two beers. I know I don't drink before a show, but I think you'll like that can artwork.
Oh yeah, that's great artwork. Yeah.
So that's from Hop and Barrel, which is a brewery in Hudson, which they actually have shows and stuff all the time there too. They have a wrestling pop up, so maybe they'll hit you up at some point.
Thank you for only being 4% too, by the way.
Wow,
feels like the trend of beer lately is just like 9.5%. You're like, how about that?
Well, so they do both, but they really wanted to come out with something that was going to be like, I mean, really, that's the point of like for the people that otherwise really like light beer. They're like, how can we have something that actually tastes good? That's like a craft beer that's fun, and the marketing behind it's just dope. But they're really like just a small brewery, one owner, like one location, but they're in every part of the state of Wisconsin now.
Crooked Grin.
That's their biggest one. Crooked Grin.
6% IPA.
Yeah.
That I can do.
Yeah. Well, without getting too crazy. So let's get back to talking about the comedy. I know the special came out a while ago now, but your special is out on Peacock, number 1.
Yes.
And that came out a year and a half ago, or when did that come out?
No, it came out last December, so December 2022.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. And it was one of the, I mean, I paid my $5.99 plus tax, not to you directly, but to Peacock. You got me. So everybody else go get Peacock at least briefly to watch this special.
Yeah.
Why'd you want to put out an hour and a half long special? That's a long one. I appreciated it because I'm like, I got my money's worth, but like, that's a long special, right?
It was long. It's long. It's definitely long for specials, but there's sort of a narrative to that one.
Right.
And like at the time it was just like, man, this is what I feel like all of this material I feel like needs to go together.
Right.
And if it ends up being long, it ends up being long. That's the risk I'm willing to take. Because I do think long form stuff still holds water. You know what I'm saying? Like I know right now, shorter attention spans and Peacock and TikTok, Peacock. Whoa, what's the difference? No, but I know like TikTok and things like that. The world seems to want to all. No, everything comes in 1 minute to 90-second bursts. Fine, some things do, not me. And like I personally, you make the choice at a certain point of like, am I trying to constantly sell myself, or am I trying to be an artist? Am I trying to be a comedian? And and in my opinion, if you are good at anything, it sells itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the people who sell themselves. Do them. I don't get that's them.
Right.
But I also think, I want to be the artist. One of the greatest interviews you can ever watch is RZA from the Wu-Tang talking about. I mean, he wasn't talking specifically about Puff Daddy.
Sure.
But he was talking about Puff. It wasn't the whole interview was about this. But they were interviewing the RZA on like coming up in the 90s and 80s and 90s and hip hop. And he was talking, at the time when the Wu-Tang Clan was sort of popping off big, so was P. Diddy.
Sure.
The mid-late 90s.
Right, yeah.
P. Diddy, Mace, and it was all the, right? Yeah. And someone made a comparison between the two, and RZA was just like, does what he does, not my thing.
Yeah.
And it was a moment, when you're a young mind hearing that, because you think, I hated P. Diddy and all that shit back then. But I loved the Wu-Tang. Still love the Wu-Tang. Like, adore it. And you'd think it'd be like, oh man, I bet the RZA's going to just shit on P. Diddy. But no, just shows like, not for me. And you're sort of like, yeah, you gotta become okay with being that person.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
you're not right. You only like, I know my way it's not necessarily the way everyone should do it.
No.
It's just the way I believe in.
Right. Well, you just need to have enough people that love you and what you create, that it builds a living and the lifestyle that you want, regardless of what dollar amount that is, because it's different for everybody. And everything, no matter how good your special is, it does not mean 100% of the people who watch it are going to like it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how good. It's just not how it works.
100% of people who watch it shouldn't like it.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah. You can't. Otherwise, you're trying to appeal to everyone, which makes you appeal to nobody.
You can't.
And there's going to be those other people that what they're doing is really good. It's just not your thing. But they have a huge audience of people that's what they like. And there's nothing wrong with that. 100%. Both can coexist. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So how did the Peacock special come about? I know online, if you Google it, at least when I was like, let me research Sean Patton, which I went down a lot of rabbit holes with. Well, I should say you go down a lot of rabbit holes when I listen to interviews. But anyways, it portrays it as your first special. That can't be your first special. Like,
it's my first.
How is that your first special at 20 years in the business?
It just took a while, man. Like, because, I existed in this, or I was coming up in this very transitional period where, putting out a special on YouTube for free was an insane idea.
Because you'd burn through your jokes, or what?
Or no, just the idea of putting out a special for free. Now people do it all the time.
Okay.
Now it's pretty much the 100% most practice, and probably the smartest thing you do, because now you're not going to make money from the actual special itself.
Right. It's a
you
promotional
will make
tool.
money in the ticket sales.
Right.
Right. But that's the way it looks now, or that's the way it is now. But for years I was just trying to get a special made with a not, and I didn't even think of it as streamers back then. It was like HBO, Netflix, Comedy Central.
Right.
Those were your options for
putting one out.
Yeah. And we were constantly trying to get one to, and like, I'm not going to say anybody jerked me around, but I will say people were constantly telling me they wanted to work with me and then just not.
Yeah.
And it got frustrating. And then I started really thinking about then I put out 2 albums. Right?
Yeah.
I have 3 albums total, but I put out 2 in the time.
Yeah, is what Scorpio?
First one's called Standard Operating Procedure. I really wish I love all the material on that album. The problem was I got arrogant and we only did 1 show.
Oh, sure.
So it's not the best representation.
Yeah, because normally you do at least 2, right?
You definitely do at least 2.
Do you wear the same outfit for both of them so you could splice them?
Well, that's I'm talking about for albums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't film. That's you wear whatever you want.
Yeah, okay.
But and then I put that album out, and then I was just trying to get a special, and then when I was like, man, it's not happening, I just was like, well, then let's start doing albums again.
Yeah.
And so those two, the next two, which are called Scuttlebutt and King Scorpio,
Yeah.
I love those. Those are both, I think, I really love those albums. Now, the second one, or the third one, the one that's called King Scorpio, my friend who is a director, he came to Portland where I was doing that one, recording it, and he brought his buddy who's a DP who has an Alexa, which is like the, Cadillac of cameras.
It's like the red camera kind of thing.
Yeah. Arguably better.
Okay.
To some people.
Yeah.
It's a Coke and Pepsi conversation, as I've learned with DPs,
Okay.
And there's also now the Sony X9, which is like Dr. Pepper,
Sure, yeah.
But he was like, hey, let's just film this. Let's just film it on one camera.
Yeah.
So they filmed every show on one camera and cut together a special out of it.
Yeah.
Right now, the special is different, slightly different than the album, but we just put it on YouTube, and it's got 100,000 views. I didn't really promote it; I just put it out there and see what people think. And I love it. I think it's a good look. So it's a very DIY special, and technically it came out before King Scorpio, before number one.
Okay.
But number one's the first produced 6-camera. Professional, wear the same thing for both shows so you can cut it together.
Yeah.
Special. And yeah, it took a while. It took longer than I wanted to, but at the end, when we shot number one, we didn't know where it was going to go. But 800 Pound Gorilla, the production company, they came in and were like, we'll do it. We'll put up the money. We'll figure out where we'll figure out.
Yeah, you didn't know it would be on Peacock or anything.
No, we just shot it. And then Michael Che, the angel of a man that he is, he's a friend, but also one of the few people who, when he tells you he's going to do something, he actually does it.
Yeah.
You get a lot, and there's a lot of people in life.
There's a lot of people that pander.
Sure. Or a lot of people who I'm guilty of this, I'm sure. You want to do something for someone,
people
but you
pleasing.
can't always, not even people pleasing, just I want to help this person, but you can't always do it like you want it to. Michael was like, let me be a producer on the special. I was like, absolutely. And then and then he was like, what do you want? And I was like, I don't have the YouTube following to just dump this online yet.
Yeah.
Because that's the part that everyone forgets or leaves out when they talk about, like Mark Norman, who's a buddy who was one of the first guys to just put out a YouTube special for free. And it went huge, but he also had a huge, over 100,000, 200,000 followers at that point.
Right.
People always point that out, like, oh, Shane Gillis, he put his out and popped up. I'm like, yeah, he probably had about 200,000 followers on YouTube at that point. If you've got under 10,000 followers, dropping your special on YouTube is like dropping it into a black hole, man. Yeah. You got to have a decent, in my opinion, at least 10,000 followers on YouTube to make sense. So at the time, I had barely any followers on YouTube. And I was like, I can't just dump it on YouTube. I'd like to go to a streaming service. And Michael was like, all right, I got you. And he brought it to Peacock. Because NBC owns Peacock, and he he brought it to them, and they were receptive. Here's the truth, and they've been great. Peacock's been great. They were receptive, but it was Michael being like, "Put this on."
Yeah,
I back this.
That's how important networking is, man. With the right people.
Also, just how much they respect him.
Sure,
but also how much sway he has, because he was like, they watched it like, "Oh, we really like this. We will consider it." And he goes, "No, put it on."
But that's what we were talking about with the gatekeepers, right? Those people are in those positions for a reason. It's not networking as far as going and pandering to people to make them feel good.
Sure.
But it's about doing the right things around the right people, showing them respect when they see somebody that they want to promote, which they're not going to just because they like you. They're going to do it because you're really good and they like you and believe in you.
Sure.
That's how you can get through those barriers. And the problem is right now with the social media and everything, so many people are trying to work around all of that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of bites them in the ass.
Totally. Takes a huge bite out of it.
How did you decide, with that being the crown jewel special that was in your mind for so long that it finally happened, how did you decide what material to even use? Because I'm sure you have way, way, way more than that.
I got some really good advice, which was your first special needs to tell people who you are. And I went with some highly personal stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that's the other reason why it was so long too, is it was it's all this material, it fits together. I know it's an hour and 27 minutes. I mean, the recording was, each shoot was about an hour and 35 minutes. We trimmed a little bit off, but I knew it was long, but I was like, this is me. This is my first special. And I guess there were people who were trying to get me to cut it down. And I was just like, yeah, but if I do that, then that means the first thing I'm putting out there, I'm not putting out 100% because I'm thinking too much about everyone else. No artist, creator, I don't think any, even business people, The idea of giving the audience what they want is a fallacy.
Yeah, that never works ever.
Never. It's where mediocrity comes from. It's where just dog shit, terrible, soulless stuff comes from. You give the audience what you want.
Right.
That's where greatness is possible. When you give the audience what you want, yes, as we pointed out earlier, there might be a percentage of them, and sometimes that percentage is larger than you're comfortable with, that aren't into it.
Yeah.
But then the percentage that is into it is always larger than you thought too.
Yeah, totally.
And that's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. Putting something out there and being like, I'm not trying to. You can't try to put blockbusters out. You just have to put great stuff out.
Yeah.
And let it do. And so like for this, it was like, I can't put out a shorter version. This is the version I want. And like I said earlier, I'll take the risk if someone goes to watch it and goes, oh, this is an hour and 27 minutes. Not for me. Then fine.
Sure.
I made that decision. Or they go, all right, I'll watch 20 minutes of this and we'll see. And then, because I've had more people tell me that than anything.
Totally. Well, it's different than like watching a Lord of the Rings movie. It's not a type of thing where you're like, well, I'm strapped in now for the next 3.5 hours of my life. You don't, with comedy, it doesn't have to be that way. You could watch half of it right now, half of it the next day. It's just a longer piece of content that's created in a really cool way that I think most people are excited when they see that it's long.
Well, that's also the biggest practical compliment I've gotten.
Yeah.
Is it didn't feel like an hour and 27 minutes.
Totally. Yeah.
It went by because I'm like, there's a narrative you're following like a...
Well, yeah, there's a whole story to it. And I think, I forget where this quote came from, but somebody told me, or I heard it somewhere or whatever, that was, people don't know what they like. That's why you can't create what you think they like, because they don't know what they like until they hear it.
Yeah.
That's why you have to create. Maybe it was Rick Rubin who said that.
I mean, that does sound.
It sounds like Rick Rubin.
Sounds very guru. I mean, you talk about like everyone's like Jon Stewart run for president.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Also Rick Rubin, kind of.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff he says,
agree.
you're like, dude.
Yeah.
Put that guy in charge of something more than just making great music.
I would love to see him talk down Putin and some of these other people with foreign affairs.
Seriously,
that's a rabbit hole, but he would be like the best person to get that guy to be calm. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the interview because I know you have places to be, and I'm excited to see this show tonight. But I always ask the same question on the end of every episode, which is, when you do something that you're really passionate about for a living, you get to have really unique experiences that are really meaningful to you, that very rarely are money driven in any kind of way.
Right.
But those are the things that make you want to continue to do that.
Of course.
Can you share a story of an experience like that for you?
Something that was just based off just from
something
comedy?
Something that only happened because you pursued comedy, but it's super meaningful to you.
Oh man. I mean, truthfully, I mean, I feel because I know how I feel like this makes him insanely uncomfortable, but like it is kind of comedy related. But getting to these past, for 6 months in 2023, I, opened for David Cross.
Yeah. And
toured with David Cross. And the thing is, David Cross was my idol when I started doing stand-up.
Wow.
And the show, which it's so insane because so many people don't know this show at all, but it's called Mr. Show.
Okay.
Right? It was on HBO. You could still watch it on Max. It was him and Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk, most people know from Better Call Saul.
Oh, sure.
Right? Those, David Cross, you know who David Cross is?
Yeah, well, everyone's heard David. Yeah.
David Cross, Bob Odenkirk had a sketch show in the mid to late 90s called Mr. Show. It was on HBO. Sarah Silverman was on it. Jack Black was on it. It was Jack Black's first ever thing.
Really?
The first things he ever did was on this show.
Wow.
Young Jack Black. Paul F. Tompkins, Brian Posehn, a lot of great. What's her name? I know her name. I'm a jerk if I can't remember this. Mary Lynn Rice Cub.
Okay.
She's hilarious. She was on it. Did I say Sarah Silverman? Yes, Sarah Silverman was on it. Tom Kinney, you know him as the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh, wow.
That guy was on it.
Yeah, okay.
So all of these amazing comedians. It was just, that show was my biggest comedic inspiration.
Okay.
It was four seasons, 30 episodes total. In my opinion, untouchably the best sketch comedy.
So everyone needs to go watch that right now.
I believe so.
So we're plugging HBO as well.
But
inadvertently.
Oh, it's so
we got to see it.
Yeah. And like I said, it's on Max. But and getting to open for David. Now, in a lot of those situations, it'll be because you share a manager.
Yeah.
Or someone's doing a favor for someone, or you both got the same agent. It didn't happen like that for me. It happened from David seeing me somewhere in New York, getting to know me a little bit, and that was weird just talking to him. But then him reaching out personally to be like, hey, you want to come open for me for?
Wow.
And it was one of these experiences where I was like, dude, it's insane because go back in time, I'm doing stand-up for like a month and a half. Right. And, young kid, 22 years old, just, oh, the world is my oyster kind of thing. And David Cross comes to town, right, to New Orleans.
Sure.
Does a venue called the Howlin' Wolf, which is a historic music venue in New Orleans. And, tickets were like $10.
Yeah.
And I go to see him, and I'm like, just, oh my God, that's actually him. And after the show, there was this band that he used to tour with. They'd open the show with a song.
Sure.
Then he'd go on and do like an hour and a half, and then they'd close the show out.
Okay.
Right? They were called Ultra Baby Fat. But a guy I knew them, so we get backstage with them. I thought David Cross had left the building at this point, and we're smoking,
yeah,
right, not cigarettes, other things, and hanging out with the band. And David Cross comes walking backstage. He'd just been elsewhere, and I'm like, I just couldn't control myself, just gush, right? And and at one point I'm just like realizing I'm gushing too hard, and I go, hey man, I just want you to know, like, one day we will work together. And he goes, oh yeah, man, yeah, I'll remember you, right? Now that was 2002.
Sure.
So 21 years later, we're like, I think we were in Portland, we were in Vancouver. And I'm like, do you remember this, by the way? And I tell him the whole story.
Yeah.
I'm like, and he's giving me this very serious, like, I could see it in his eyes. He's like remembering it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, and he's like, holy shit, man. Wait. And he's like, New Orleans? Howlin' Wolf backstage? You? Do I remember that? No. It was 21 years ago. No. He's like, I don't remember that at all. Sorry, but you're welcome, I guess. And I was like, haha. But it was such a moment of like, I said earlier, like, putting it out there online, I think can be a little bit cheesy, but I do believe in putting it out there.
Totally.
Right? And that was, it took 21 years, but I was right.
Yeah.
I toured with David for 6 months, 69 shows. I've done his podcast. He's like a friend now.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't always return my calls.
Sure.
But like,
busy guy.
But like,
yeah,
that was a crazy, like, long experience of just like, man, like, if you really love what you do and you really just go for it, you'll get it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
For sure.
It's out there, but it's a good hard. It's that kind of hard that you're like, yes, like that. Because listen, I'll say this to anyone. I don't think this is just comedy. I think in arts in general, there is a level of delusion and masochism required.
I would agree. I would agree.
You have to be able to be self-delusional and masochistic.
Yeah.
And some people can't do that. And
most people can't do that.
Most people can't. And I totally understand that. No judgment. Get it. Not only can I do it, I like to do it. It's like I look forward to doing it in a way. So it's like, because of that, you get to a certain point. So I just say that to anyone. Like, if you want something, if you want to be in this world, you can be. Just knuckle up and deal with it.
Yeah.
It's great. The journey's great. And I'm still on mine, and we're all still on ours, but like, it is the best part. You hear that trope a lot, that the journey beats the destination any day of the week. It's true. But stay on the journey, and the best way to do that is just stay yourself.
I think that's what we all learn the most as we get older. That's been like the biggest life lesson to me, is every time you have another experience, you look back on it and you go, wow, that was incredible. And then you hit yourself and you're like, I need to make sure I'm aware when I'm in that experience next time to really enjoy that. You know what I mean? And when you work really hard on something, yes, it's nice to have that, to make money from it, or it's nice to build an audience or whatever. But that one person, in your case, David Cross, respecting and liking what you do means more than 1,000 other random people. Because this is you know what I mean? Yeah. When somebody like that recognizes it, it changes the game for you completely.
That was one of those experiences. Yeah. And I mean, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Colin feels that way a little bit about all you guys coming here.
Oh,
all these
yeah,
people
man.
that, dude, he's the biggest fan, and just kind of ending it talking about him. He has told me many times how much money he has lost on a show, knowing he was going to lose it on that show because he personally wanted to see that person that badly.
And that's how you know it's going to be a great show.
Oh, absolutely.
When the booker cares like that, you know?
Yeah. So everyone's going to see the show. They're going to listen to this, which is going to be after you're gone. However, I'm sure you'll be back. So then they'll have to make it to that show, and maybe we'll be able to book out the bigger venue over at the Lismore.
That'd be awesome.
Let's give it one more shout out. Where can people find all of your stuff? Where can they watch special, all that?
If you want to follow me on anything, follow me on Instagram at Mr. Sean Patton. Excuse me. My website, meseanpatton.com. All my tour dates are listed on that, always, constantly. And I'm in this show that recently got picked up for FX, and we're supposed to start shooting pretty soon, and it will probably, by that rationale, be out in the fall, called The English Teacher. So keep your eyes open for that.
Oh, killer. Doing some more TV stuff.
Yeah. So,
dope. Well, congratulations on grabbing that, and thank you so much for coming to Eau Claire again.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.